Hello. Welcome and welcome back. Where are you going, buddy? I guess Elmer didn't want to be in the video. A little camera shy. I framed the whole thing so that he's in it, but hello. Welcome and welcome back. I'm Natalie and this is my channel Knitly where I talk about all of my creative endeavors. I'm currently hyperfixated on knitting, but I also do pottery and I have some sewing projects coming up, just kind of collecting all the crafting hobbies. But today we also have a guest star. This is Elmer. I don't know if he's been fully in a video. We'll see how long he stays on the couch for. But do you want to introduce yourself? Wonderful. You're so cute, bud. All right, let's just jump right into it. Today, I thought it could be fun to do a planning my fall plans. I feel like a lot of the videos that I see that are coming out right now from knitting YouTubers is fall planning videos where they just kind of throw a whole bunch of patterns out there into the world for their audience to get inspiration from. And I love that as a concept, but I think my video is going to be a little bit more intentional about figuring out the one or two sweaters that I want to knit for myself this fall and winter. The outline of this video is as follows. I want to reflect on some of my first few sweaters, my fall and winter type sweaters. I gathered some themes of knitwear, inspirations, patterns, colors, etc. that I want to talk through to help narrow down the direction of what I want to knit this year. And then the third part of it is I mocked up some of the design options and I pulled a few pieces from my closet that I think are going to be my fall staples in order to see how those knitwear pieces actually fit into my wardrobe. That's kind of the outline of this video. So let's just jump into it. Let's talk about some of my first few knitwears and why or why not I didn't wear them. So my first sweaters, I have my iPad here just for some notes. The first sweater I knit was a cardigan number 7 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, and I knit it in a black cotton yarn. My second sweater was the Norma sweater by My Favorite Things Knitwear, and I knit it in an acrylic wool blend. And the third sweater I want to talk about is my Augusins number 1 by Anne-Sophie Velling, and that I knit in an alpaca blend, I think. And I don't really want to dive into those too much because I plan on doing a everything I ever knit video at the end of this year. But anyway, I just wanted to bring those up because there are a few things that I've learned from my first few projects that I want to take into consideration for the projects that I plan to knit this year. So the first thing is, as a new knitter, there was a variety of things that I didn't know. I didn't really know about gauge. I didn't really gauge swatch kind of at all. I didn't really know how yarn changes after blocking. There's a lot of things that I've learned this year that I didn't know when I first started knitting, and I think that's very normal. And I think the practice of experimenting and playing around with yarn and playing around with those things is one of the biggest joys I found through knitting, is the learning process and being able to see firsthand the growth that I've accomplished over the past year. So the other thing too is my color choices weren't entirely correct for me. I think these past few months of posting content online and making color palettes and seeing what colors I'm actually drawn to is shifting the way that I'm thinking about fashion in general. Generally, I didn't really understand how I wanted to incorporate knitwear into my closet. Like I said, I haven't ever been a huge sweater wearer. I am a crewneck sweatshirt person, and I think that just leans more into the casualness of my lifestyle. Not only is Seattle as a city pretty casual dressing, but I also work from home, so I want to be very comfortable. I want to not have to think about what I'm wearing or feel like I'm putting too much effort in to what I'm wearing. So we'll talk about that a little bit in a second when I talk about my style. But so how do I face some of these problems? Well, like I said, I think some of the gauge and yarn fiber content and those things I've learned just through time. And I feel like a little bit more knowledgeable than I was this time last year to be able to make educated decisions on yarns that I'm using for specific projects. I'm nowhere near super knowledgeable yet. I think that it'll just keep going, through time. Also, like I said, being more online this year, I feel like I've started to really understand a little bit more about my perspective on designs and colors that feel like represent me as a person, because I feel like that's part of the job of fashion in general, a way to express yourself, and I feel like I'm learning what I have to say or contribute. But one of the things that I really learned about my fashion sense this year is I really enjoy the not trying aspect. I think that there's a couple different keywords that I could describe my style, and that's comfortable. I love not feeling my clothes on my body. I don't want to wear anything tight. I don't want to wear, heels ever again. I don't want to feel constricted in my movement. I want to feel like I'm not wearing any clothes. Not that I'm nude, because I don't love that feeling. And then gorpy and sporty is another thing that I would characterize my fashion sense right now. And I think a lot of that has to do with how I'm spending my time. So I have a puppy, as you've seen. He is now laying on the ground really nicely. But a lot of the time when I'm leaving the house, I am taking him on a walk. And so my outfits need to be functional in that I can do whatever I want in them. And that's not to say that I'm not doing anything else besides that, but I do feel the best when I can be up for anything in whatever I'm wearing. So, and then also the third side is playful. So, as you've seen from my frog tee and just some of the graphic tee elements that I have, there is this little kid element to little kid or little something that I just want to have a little bit of fun with what I'm wearing, as long as it fits into those other needs. And I think playful could come from a silly graphic like a frog, or it could come from the shape and silhouette, or it could come from the color combination, or it could come from a lack of color combination. I love wearing monochrome outfits too, as you've seen from my sunny tee that I knit to match my little sweat shorts that I have. And I think that that's a little element of playful. A matching set is it's playful in a different way. What is encompassing all those things is this idea of not trying. I would love to have a full wardrobe where I love every single piece in my closet, and I can just pull pieces from my closet without thinking if they work together, and loving the result of them being together because I love the individual pieces, if that makes sense. I have been really enjoying playing around with unexpected color combinations. I think my favorite outfits that I've worn this year are ones that I just threw on because I needed to put clothes on, and because I liked the individual pieces in the outfit, I liked how they looked together. And I liked that some of the colors that I was playing with, just I wouldn't have chose to put them together. I think actually the times where I haven't felt the greatest in my clothes is when I spend a long time trying to put something together. If I have time to go to a specific event and I'm trying to figure out what clothes I want to wear to that event, I end up liking my outfit less because I'm thinking too hard about it rather than just throwing it together. So that is a little summary of my style. So now let's get into some planning things. I have several categories or themes of types of knitwear that I've collected and distilled, into groups. So I think I have 5 themes, and these are just gathered from things that I've seen on YouTube, things that I've seen on my Pinterest, things that I've seen on Instagram, ideas that I've come across, things that I've seen in yarn stores, etc., etc. I just kind of grouped them in a way that felt encompassing the trends that I'm seeing that I've been drawn to. So this isn't necessarily trend prediction, kind of thing. It's more of what I'm drawn to, which might align with a lot of the trends. So we'll see. I'm not like claiming to be special or whatever. Okay, the first theme is cobalt blue. I talked about this in my last video when I went to Flock. I kept being drawn to these really vivid cobalt blue colors in every single yarn booth. And I have been seeing more and more people knit in that color. And I think it's such a fun, bold color. I have a jacket that I have had for a few years that it's in a really bright blue color, and I always feel really good wearing it. I just really like it. I'm really drawn to it recently. So some of the yarns that I've found that fit into this category are the Pigment and Ply Superwash Merino DK and I'll Be Your Demon Daddy. I talked about that in my last video as something that I might pre-order, but I'm a little bit skeptical about Superwash. I'm just going to put my iPad here because I have notes on like specific things that there's no way that I was going to remember to say all of it. So the other yarn that I've been really liking is the Sandus Garn Double Sunday in the petite knit colorway called Electric Blue. This is a yarn that I'm curious about playing around with this year because it seems like a fan favorite out there. I talked about this again in my last video that I used Sandus Garn Pure Gint for my Vilma top, and I'm curious about the merino version that's the Double Sunday. So I am curious about playing around with that, and I really liked that they had the electric blue color in it. There's also Drops Baby Merino in electric blue. Hobby Friends also has a sapphire color, but I did see that one is a little bit on the scratchier side, and I'm such a baby when it comes to sensitivity, so I'm not sure if that's something that I would be interested in trying out, but definitely the Double Sunday in the electric blue petite knit colorway is what's kind of drawing my attention if I were to knit something in that color. So that's the first theme. The second theme that I've been noticing that I've been drawn to is tweed, marled yarn, or just slightly variegated yarn, something where the yarn itself has the dimension and the interest, and maybe not as much so the pattern. So some yarn examples are a tweed yarn like the Studio Donegal Soft in the color Guinness or Smoke, or even the gray Rocky Paths colorway I think are really nice. Kelburn Woolens also has an Aran weight one called Lucky Tweed, and I like the navy and the light gray in that one, and the rust too. But honestly, all of them are good. I just think when I've been drawn to tweed recently, it's been like in a light gray, like heathery light gray colorway. For marling, I also love the idea of just two slightly different colors held together. So if you're knitting a DK weight sweater, holding two fingering weight sweaters together, and in colors that are slightly different, like maybe like a navy and a royal blue or something where the shades are slightly off, but it brings some dimension into the finished object in a way that's more consistent than variegated yarn. And at Flock, there's also a company called Les Garçons. I'm terrible at pronunciation, so I don't know how to actually say it, but they had a yarn that was marled on its own, and I was really, really close to getting it. They have a bunch of really cool colorways. I like the Edith and Twyla version, or the Max and Natural, or even the Edith and Vincent, which is like a dark teal and burnt orange marl, which I think is so cool. Like picking a marl that's just like you wouldn't expect. So there's two sides to it. There's like the slightly off colors marl together, or two colors that you wouldn't necessarily notice or like pick to marl together, and just creating some like really interesting dimension. And then for variegated yarns, I feel like I've spent hours looking at the Malabrigo website. I've used the Malabrigo Verano before, which is the cotton, but I'm curious about the Seis Cabo, which is a 6-ply light worsted weight 100% merino wool, and I'm obsessed with the Frank Ochre color. It's such a good color, and I'm obsessed with it, so I don't really know what else to say. It's just like a great color. But I also like the denim color, which is like pretty denim-y. It's like that blue, slightly variegated, but like toned down blue, and then also the caramel color, which is like a rusty orangey color. And I like all three of those kind of together too. I think for variegated yarn, I just have a hard time like picturing what it would look like outside of the skein. I'm such a visual person, and I feel like it's easy to visualize solid color things, but it's harder to visualize like how the color will actually transition together. I also feel very picky about when it comes to variegated yarns. Like a lot of the hand dyed yarns that are variegated out there, I don't know if I'm like it feels like me. I think it's more of that like subtle aspect to it. Okay, moving on to the third theme. The third theme is zip up, like a zip up cardigan. I feel like I've been seeing them all over my Pinterest, and there's two different versions. And I talked about this in my last like planning video, but there's a version where there's symmetrical motifs on it, or there's a version that's more sporty and it has like stripes down the side. There's a couple patterns that I pulled. There's like the Vivian Cardigan by Kiss.rhinestones, which I think is more textured. There's the Brooklyn by Martin Storey, which is more sporty, and the Lotta Zipper by Les Filles du Sur, which is the same designer that did the Lotta pants, which I'm wearing my shorts version today, and I think it could be fun to do that, but more in a solid color. I can't remember the other one that I saw, but if I remember it, I'll put it on the screen. I think when I first talked about this, I was more drawn to the sporty version of it, but now I think I'm more drawn to the duplicate stitch type motif on it. Because of duplicate stitching my frog, I feel like I've just been itching to duplicate stitch something else. And an idea that I have is kind of a neighborhood friends type vibe. I think in the mornings when I'm walking Elmer, I always see crows, bunnies, and squirrels in varying different sets of 2 or 3. But I like the idea of a neighborhood friends type thing. So I don't know if that means like 2 crows on the front, or like a crow and a bunny, or 2 squirrels, or like something on the back too, like that kind of vibe. I feel like it just is really sweet in the idea of just throwing on a zip up cardigan to take Elmer out on our morning walk and being alone with all the neighborhood creatures in the morning. So that's my idea for that one, but we'll see. Okay, theme number 4 is all over texture or cables. I have not done like an all over texture or a cable garment, and I think it would be really fun. I just started doing a linen stitch tea towel pattern from the Rose Knitwear book, and I'm having a blast doing something that's not just stockinette, but I do feel like it is a little bit more exhausting, so we'll see. But some patterns that I have in mind for this are the Upstream sweater by Hoyle. This is something that's everywhere right now, and I think is such a cool design, and I'm just so tempted to make it. But I also am like, is everyone going to make it this year, and should I make something else? So we haven't decided on a final decision for that, but that's one of them that I've seen. And then also the waffle loops roll neck sweater, my other loops, is really interesting to me. I don't know how to do like a waffle stitch pattern yet, and I think it could be really fun to do that. And then on my Pinterest, sometimes I'll randomly see like these like old men in these sweaters, and Pinterest just knows how to get me. Just put an old man in a sweater and I think it's cute. And there's this one picture of an old man wearing a sweater that was a cable sweater, but the cables were spaced out, and then it had a turtleneck and the cuffs and the hem of the sweater in a contrast green color. So the base of the sweater was brown and the contrast was green. And I thought it was so cool and loved the idea of spaced out cables because it feels like a little bit less intense than an all over cable sweater. And so I found, or someone sent me the syrup sweater by Maria Isaeva, and I'm obsessed with it. I think it's kind of exactly what I was looking for. I think, though, if I were to knit it, I would modify it a little bit because the sleeves are pretty wide, and I'd want it to be, like, tapered more. Okay, and then theme number 5 is colorwork, duplicate stitching, or stripes. So I know I already mentioned duplicate stitching, a zip-up sweater, but there are some other like colorwork patterns that I've been interested in that kind of fit this category. So there's the Harriet sweater, which I've been obsessed with Millie from What's Millie Making's Harriet sweater. That is just like this dark chocolate brown, which I've been obsessed with. And I think that she used a pink contrast, which I think looks really good. And then another pattern that I really like is the Helenis Islander sweater by Fable Knitwear. And I didn't really realize that this kind of motif was something that is common in a lot of patterns, but it's just kind of like this slightly checkered, slightly like wavy dotted motif across the whole sweater. And I think it's just is a nice way to add a little bit dimension into a piece rather than just plain, and also pretty easy like color work. Like it's just kind of alternating the colors and without having to think too much about the charts. So I like that idea. And the other option that I'm considering is another Olga sweater. I did knit the Olga sweater in cotton, and I think it would be nice to knit like a merino wool version. But I was thinking of either doing smaller stripes, so doing like 2 rows per stripe, so it's a thinner stripe, or thicker stripes. So instead of like the 4 rows, I think each, it would be 8 rows. And one of my favorite like fashion inspiration people out there in the online world is Not My Mango, and she has this sweater that's fuzzy and it's thick stripes of black and green, and I think it's only like 4 stripes total, but I think it looks so cool and is a different play on stripes than what we've been seeing everywhere with the Olga sweater. So I'm tempted to do that as well. And then yeah, so those are kind of the themes. I'll just recap them real quick for you all and for me. Cobalt blue, some type of tweed or marled variegated yarn, a zip up, all over texture or keybols, and then a colorwork duplicate stitch striping kind of theme. Okay, let's get into playing around with the mock-ups that I have of how these sweaters could actually fit into my closet. I have a couple different items. I have a big collection of sweat shorts. It's kind of like my short of choice. And I recently got ones from Goodwill that are these blue, heathered blue color. So wanted to play around with those and see how they work with the different colors that I picked out for the sweaters. I also have my white long skirt. This feels like it kind of could be an all year round piece, maybe not in the like cold winter, but you could wear leggings underneath it. But I've been really dying to wear sweaters with this skirt, but I haven't had it long enough to do that. So I also have my Meals chef pants that I also got on Depop, and I have the dark green colorway, and I wore them with my frog tee to flock, and I loved how I felt in them. I felt like so cool and so comfortable. So I wanted to play around with those for some of these outfits. Here I have my dark brown corduroy pants, which are actually the Levi's baggy dad corduroys that I got on Depop. I'm really excited to bring those back out. And those are the 4 bottoms. And then for shoes, I have my brown Super Birkies, which I wear every single day to take Elmer out. So they just feel like a practical choice. I also have my like Gorpy shoes. These aren't the exact shoes that I have. I got like Patagonia ones at Goodwill that remind me of the really trendy Keen ones, and they're just really practical, like low hiking shoes essentially, and I love them. So I wanted to see how those work. And then the last shoe option is my red Hunter rain boots, also from Depop, and I love these, and I've been really excited to bring these back out because I think they're such a fun little pop of color. And yeah, so those are the like my items that I have in my closet. The other item is my blue and navy bag. I know it looks really funny in this picture here, but that's just because it will go, like if I'm wearing it, you'll see just the strap, the crossbody strap. So that's that. And then for the knitwear that I mocked up, I kind of pulled from some of the categories and maybe mixed the categories together. So I have the Upstream sweater in the cobalt blue color. I have the Islander whatever sweater in the Frank Oka color and the rust color as the dots on it. I also have the waffle loop sweater in the light gray marled color. So this would be like holding a white and a gray yarn together. I also mocked up a zip up cardigan, and I put some squirrel motifs on it and also some flowers around the bottom. I also have the syrup sweater in like a dark medium brown. And then the last of which is a thick striped sweater, and I used a dark gray and a brown for this one. So let's get into playing around with them. I don't really have a plan going into this. Okay, let's start with picking out a sweater and seeing how it works with everything. So I'm going to put the thick striped sweater with my bag on, and let's do my cords, and let's put my super brookies on. So this would be like an all brown kind of outfit, which I love wearing an all brown outfit. And then my bag is kind of the pop color. I think this looks really solid. It also could look good with my like Gorpy shoes. I'm really excited to wear my corduroy shoes with those, and I feel like this looks good to me. My red rain boots also works. I feel like the stripes are kind of the statement in this outfit, but the red shoes are like the color statement, and I think that's really nice. I also really like the red shoes with my bag, but I'm going to try not to compliment the clothing items that I already have. I'm focused on the sweater. Let me not forget that. I do think that this sweater seems like it would work really well with these corduroy pants, which is nice. I mean, what wouldn't? Okay, let's see how it works with the skirt. I do like this too. I think that there's a juxtaposition with the skirt where the skirt is kind of a feminine piece and the striped sweater is like more masculine, and I like how that plays. Okay, and then the sweat shorts. I do like this. This would be definitely a way that I'd be wearing it to take Elmer out to go to the bathroom. Also, love the Gorpy shoes with it. I think this might be my least favorite. I think it's just because the Meals Chef pants are pretty baggy and oversized, and so is the concept for this striped sweater. Okay, so that's the thick striped sweater. Let's look at the syrup sweater. This will be interesting to see how it directly compares because the colors are kind of similar. I think one of the things that I'm skeptical about a cable sweater for my style is because my style feels like casual, will a cable sweater play into that correctly? I do like this, but you can already tell how much more formal this looks than the thick striped sweater. The thick striped sweater feels a little bit more me, and then it's pretty casual, and this feels a little bit more dressy. With the Gorpy shoes, though, it does feel a little bit more like not like fisherman or like an old man outfit, which is nice. I don't think I necessarily like the cable with the skirt. It feels a little bit yachty. But with the sweat shorts, I like that because that brings it a little bit more casual. So I think my favorite is actually with the cords or with the sweat shorts and my Gorpy shoes. So that's interesting that I already feel like the thick striped one works better than the syrup. Okay, let's look at the zip up one because I'm curious for this one. See, I like this, and I like this better than the syrup sweater because I think that there's the playful element of it that the syrup one feels a little bit too formal or put together in a way. Love it with the rain boots because I had a little pop of red on the flowers. That's super cute. How does it work with the white skirt instead? I also think that's cute. I think it does feel a little bit more put together than the casualness of it because of the zip up vibe. I also think that works, and I think it works because the zip up would have a ribbing at the bottom that what I tend to do with my crew neck sweatshirts is tuck the ribbing or the hem of the sweater underneath so that it like cinches in the waist a little bit. And I do think that would work well with the meal chef pants, like the zipper, because it would be kind of tight at the bottom to separate out the baggy. Ooh, I really like my rain boots with my meals pants. Have I not done that yet? I feel like the sweater kind of brings this all together. That's really cute. Okay, let's do the waffle loop roll neck sweater in the light gray. I'm curious because I feel like I like the idea of a light gray sweater because it feels neutral and it balances out maybe some colorful pieces, but I'm curious how it actually will look with my clothes. Let's play around with the cords in rain boots. This feels solid. It also feels a little bit boring, which is surprising because the rain boots are red and my bag is blue and the cords and everything has like a texture. I do like it, but it's not super duper fun. For some reason, I like it more with my Gorpy shoes than my rain boots with this outfit. That I like how this casuals down the sweater, even though the sweater is kind of casual, but it also is it's definitely more dressy than a sweatshirt. So not sure. I don't think I really like this either. What about the white skirt? Feels a little bit old or something. Okay. I don't think that that's my favorite. Is the color the issue for me or is it the texture? Okay, let's do the Islander. Ooh. Okay. I do really like that. See how it's like it it's playful and fun color-wise, but I also feel like it'll go with everything, but not feel too put like I think because it's playful, it brings the casualness to it. Ooh, that's cute. See that color combination, like you wouldn't necessarily expect that this yellow ochre color, this rust, these blues, these different blues would look good together, but I really like that. I also kind of like that together because it's just kind of a little bit unexpected. This feels like the craziest outfit that I could put together and like this whole combination, but I like it. It's playful, but like I can balance down that sweater with the cord pants if I want. The white skirt also I think is cute. I do like this one. I do like this one. I definitely like it more than the waffle loop sweater and the syrup sweater. And then the last one that I have is the Upstream sweater in the cobalt blue. What I was really excited about was the playing around with my rain boot with these. Like, I love this outfit. This feels like you picked certain colors just because you threw them together and then they look good together. But like obviously I also like it if it's neutral. The sweatshorts I'm excited to see because like I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to pick out like a teal or a dark greenish blue color with a royal blue. Like it doesn't feel as intentional. It feels nice. What about the white skirt? Like even that's cute. I mean, it's kind of a little bit like USA-y, and like that's not necessarily what I want to be screaming right now. But I think maybe it's the color of the sweater that makes it a little bit more casual, but also could be dressed up nicely too. What about with my green pants? Like that's also fun. That's a fun play with color. That is cute. Okay. Is that all of them? I know, I want to keep going. I think I'm already going to eliminate the syrup and the waffle loops. I just feel like they're not quite right. So I have a top 4 now. I like all of them. I think this thick stripe sweater might do a similar job that my cloud sweater does, where it's just a big casual oversized fit, but I like that it brings a little bit of pattern into my closet because I really don't have too much pattern. This is going to be an impossible decision. Do I just need to make 4 things? I like all of them, and I feel like they all would fit different purposes in my closet and scratch and itch in my like knitting journey. Like there's the Islander has like a colorwork element to it that I want to do more of because the colorwork sweater that I knit last year, I don't really see myself wearing too much. The thick striped one is nice because I already think I have yarn that I could use for it. The zip up is also like learning a new technique of the zip up. It's duplicate stitching probably again, unless I want to explore intarsia, which also can be fun. And then the upstream sweater is it's just the scratch of the color that I'm like drawn to right now, and all over textured, which would be nice. Yeah. I don't know what I'm leaning towards the most right now. I feel drawn to all four of these. But at least this helped me narrow down two to not include. So the syrup sweater and the waffle loop sweater. And maybe it's just because of the colors that I picked for those, but it also might just be the vibe of them. So yeah, this is, I guess, where I'm gonna leave off this video is these four sweaters. I was hoping that I would land at one option and be able to like order yarn for it or go to the yarn store and get yarn for it, but I feel like I'm still torn. So I'm curious what your favorite one was, what your favorite outfit combination was of all of things that I shared, and what you guys are planning on knitting. I really enjoyed filming this. I think this type of video honestly might be more so for me than for you guys because it helps me figure out and collect my thoughts on pieces. But yeah, just moving forward, I want to be more intentional about what I'm casting on and take a little bit more consideration into the yarn that I'm choosing for things, patterns that I'm picking, so that I will actually end up really wearing and loving and having pieces that last a really long time in my closet. And yeah, I really enjoyed this process, and I feel like I could probably do more of these videos seasonally because there's always, new trends going on, and how to distill those trends into something that actually works long term in your closet is an interesting concept in itself. So, if you want to see in real time which direction that I pick for these sweaters, follow me on Instagram at knit.elite over there. I feel like I'll probably post as soon as I get the yarn for one of these things. And if you guys ever DM me on Instagram or comment or anything, we're immediately friends. So keep that in mind. Thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you again soon. Bye.